So my name is Gabija, as I was introduced, and I work here as a product marketing manager. Before I go into Agile and how we use it, how many of you know Agile? Could you raise your hands? So a lot of you. It doesn't matter if you do know it or don't know it, you will learn something about Agile and at least how we implement it in our marketing, especially in content and how we started it. So firstly, a little bit about me. So I work around 5 years in marketing already. In Oxylabs, I work here for 3 years. And in the past 2 years, I was working with Agile and I'm a Scrum Master. For those who might not know, Agile, I'll just give a little brief introduction. So Agile is a mindset. It's a mindset that allows you to reflect on how to become more effective within a team and accordingly adjust. And underneath this Agile umbrella, because it's just a mindset, more of a theory, there are methodologies called like Scrum, Lean, Kanban, Crystal. Maybe you've heard some of those. Specifically today I will be talking about Scrum because this is what we use, and Scrum is a framework usually for developers, but not necessarily. This is why I'm talking about it. On how to create and sustain complex products and move them into production. So I'm going to go over why we chose Scrum, how we implement it into marketing, what are the benefits and drawbacks of both of Scrum and Agile, and overall theory and tools that you can read up when you get the slides. So we needed Scrum and Agile back in 2019 because we started OxyCon, and OxyCon is a web conference that we do. This was the first time we ever did a web conference, and we had to do it like in 2 months. So we had a very small team, loads of work, and back then it was like something around 7 people. It was a CEO, it was PR, it was content managers, it was copywriters, it was and social media was all in 7 people. We were working and still are working with a very technical product. So together with OxyCon, we kept having really unclear priorities on which task to do. We kept losing focus, and therefore we had a lot of postponed deadlines because we didn't know how to set our priorities straight. This is why we decided to introduce Scrum. And why Scrum? Very, very simple. It's because our developers work with Scrum. So we already had the know-how in our teams, and we had already Scrum Masters. A Scrum Master is someone who knows and specializes in Agile, that can teach us and you know, give us ideas on how to start doing Agile and Scrum. So I'll give some data because, you know, nice charts. So the first months with Scrum looked like this. This is the first month. In October 2018, we did 71 tasks. You see here the sizes, like it looks like t-shirt sizes because it is. And it's how we used to measure the size of our tasks. We currently use story points. I will go into detail a little bit later, but let's focus on the numbers. So in October, we did 71 tasks, and only of 1 month of using Scrum, we managed to pump that number up until 137 tasks. So that was overall the 92% growth, just 1 month. So it seems that it works. And so how it looks, how does it look like? Scrum is basically in this little graph. It has a backlog. A backlog looks something like this. This is my own personal backlog. So these are the tasks that need to be done eventually at some point in my life. How do they go into the sprint? They go through planning. A sprint usually can be like around a week or 2. It really depends on the team. And what do you decide? For our case, it's 1 week. So a sprint equals 1 week of work that we say that we commit to finish and complete them during the sprint. So there's also a daily Scrum, also known as daily stand-ups. We don't do daily stand-ups because we didn't see the need to it, and that's the beauty of Scrum, because you can adapt it to your team and see what works. We started doing once a week stand-up because during pandemic, we wanted to call each other and talk a little bit, so that's when we introduced stand-ups at least once or twice a week. And there's also a sprint retrospective. I will go all in detail on the whole flow a bit later, but the retrospective is something that we gather once a month with the team and just talk about what we liked, what we didn't like, what we learned, and what is lacking in our 4 weeks of sprint. It can be personal, it can be around tasks. So you've seen the backlog, now planning. Planning is, like I mentioned, we give to our tasks, we give story points. This is how we measure how big is the task. And so let's say making a cup of coffee, pretty easy. But making a cake, yeah, that's a bit difficult. I have no idea how to make a cake. So I will need to do research. I will need to buy the ingredients. I also need to calculate we try not to calculate time, we try to calculate risks. So let's say my eggs were all spoiled, so I needed to go to the shop and buy more for the cake. Hence, the task is increasing and getting bigger. So during the planning, we, together with the team, evaluate the sizes of the tasks so we know how much task we should put into our sprint so we wouldn't get overloaded and overworked. And this is how the sprint looks like. This is the middle of my own sprint. We have columns of what we need to do, what is currently in progress, what are on hold tasks. On hold tasks are those that maybe someone is not responding to me, or I wrote an email and that person gone on vacation, so I'm not gonna have a response soon. In review is something, let's say that I wrote a blog post and I gave it for QA to proofread, and done task is something that I completed and done and forgotten. And then retrospective. This is, for me personally, one of my favorite things of Scrum. I really enjoy meeting up with our team once a month and talking about all the things that we liked, learned, lacked, and looked for. So this is a 4L method. And we, together as a team, talk and give the time to write down all the things that we liked, all the things that we learned, and then we together vote on the most important things as a team. We decide which the things that we want to really celebrate and the things that we want to improve on. So let's say we have an issue with some other team. We decide that we need an action. So we do this action point and a plan, and dedicate a person to figure out a problem. Let's say, like, I don't know, if maybe, get a better relationship with SEO. So we will invite Adomas to help us out. And this is how some issues get resolved within a short period of time. So overall benefits of Scrum. This is Milda, my ex-team lead. Currently, she went on to study history and get her master's in history. So in her eyes, and what we see in Scrum, you can see that there's a better visualization. Visualization. Give me a second. You see your sprint better. So you can see your sprint better because you can you visualize your tasks because we use the tool Jira. You also understand your task a lot better because you do those plannings together with a team. So you evaluate what's the size of the task, how much you want to do. It's also easy to see your priorities because you see the whole scope of your week, and there's not like a whole scope of a month. It's only a week, so you know what to prioritize, especially business-wise. you don't. There's then therefore less unplanned tasks and less last-minute tasks because you already pre-plan it and think ahead of time. During retrospectives, you get your team problem solved and resolved, whether it's personal or within other teams. And there also you have more transparency within the team because you already know what others are doing and they know what you're doing, and you can share your know-how. You can help each other out. If somebody has more tasks that week, you can just help them out. Of course, with all good things, there are always some bad things. So there are some drawbacks of Scrum as well, especially at the beginning. So with other teams, there will be some difficulty coordinating tasks and educating on changes. So, you will say, hey, I'm working with Scrum, and the first thing will be, what the fuck is Scrum? So you will need to educate your team members and explain from now on, we're working with this methodology. It will take some time, but it's doable. It's in our case, right now, most other teams are also working with Scrum, so it got easier along the way. And obviously, as well as managing unplanned tasks, because other people will be used to coming in and saying, hey, I need this task, this is urgent, can you please do this task? And you will need to either, yes, there will be unplanned tasks that you need to take in, but they need to also learn to respect that you're working via sprint, and will probably take another task the next week. And within the team, you will have some drawbacks when defining DoD. That means definition of done. This is when a task goes to the done pile. So a good definition of done example would be for a blog post. It would be something that is already written, published, and live on your blog. And then obviously at the beginning as well, managing task scope. So you will have no idea how many tasks to put in. You think you can do more, but this is a trial and error. I think the first month will be just trial and error, and you will definitely figure it out. So this is theory tools that you can read up later on, and thank you.
Yes?
Thank you for the presentation, firstly. My question would be, what would you have done differently in the implementation process, especially while educating your team? What kind of drawbacks did you get that you might want to avoid if you would start it all over again?
All over again? That's a good question. And a difficult one.
Sorry.
No, it's not. Don't worry about it. Thank you for the question. I think it's hard to say because I think, keeping them transparent on, I guess, focusing that this is not for team leads and not for a process just for the sense of process. It's something for the team and for them to manage their time. I guess I would introduce it for their own, everybody wants to manage their time in a better way. Most of us, including me, I sometimes also struggle on time management, my task management. So this is how I would, I guess, introduce it this time around, not to like, oh, let's do this process, maybe because maybe it will perhaps improve something, but instead of this will surely help out, and also maybe say that, hey, we can try it. If we don't like it, we can always go back. So it would be, I wouldn't give it as a big commitment.
Thanks. That's a great question. Anyone else? Yes?
How do you avoid the task graveyard in your backlog? I mean, it's easy to start, but then over kind of a couple of sprints, there's a lot of tasks in the backlog, and then which comes first, and some of them doesn't make sense after 3 weeks. So
That's a very good question. Well, I would suggest probably at least once a month go over the backlog and delete the tasks that are not relevant anymore, because there will be tasks that are just not redundant and repetitive. Also, it's good to talk to your team lead about those tasks that are in your graveyard for, I don't know, 2 or 3 months. Probably either you need to figure out, do I need to delete them or should I do them? And maybe if your backlog is very, very big, maybe you need to hire more people because you cannot finish the whole backlog yourself.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Can Agile help you with hiring people, as you mentioned, if the backlog is very big? When you think we should hire more people? What's like a good criteria?
I would say if the tasks, especially if you align with your team lead or your I would, and all of the tasks that are in your backlog are important and cannot be deleted. And the priorities, when there's like a lot of priorities, there's no priorities. Like everything is important. I would say that's a good indicator that you might need a person and you need someone to help you out to clean out the backlog. Because if you can't delete any of the tasks and they're very important, well, I think, and it cannot be finished within a month or so, I think that's a good indicator.
Thank you. No one else. Okay. So I'm going to ask some questions as well. So when you scale the company, will you scale the team? Like, do you think Scrum still works the same way, or do you need to find some alternative or maybe some changes in the process?
I think it works. I mean, it depends on how it scales up. If it branches out into different teams, let's say in our case, we had at first we had everyone like SEO, PR, social media managers in 7 people, the 7 people team. So we had this one planning, one everything. But when we started getting bigger, and SEO had their own team, and PR has now their own team. We separated the plannings, but we still use the same Scrum. I would just say separate the retrospectives, separate the plannings and daily stand-ups, because for the specific teams, the problems will be completely different than to let's say, for me, I was a content manager back then. So for me, it would be like, writing, a blog post, that's my issue. And for SEO, it would be completely different and something that's not completely related to them. So it would be difficult to discuss tasks together.
Okay, thanks. Do you have any more questions? Yeah.
I'm trying to think of my question.
Okay, take your time.
So, how do you decide on how many story points you should give on the task? Like within the team, how do you do it? Do you have any argues or something?
Mm-hmm.
How do you solve the issues?
Well, it's just talking through what number, let's say for us it's 13, what number is the highest in the week. And it can be just completely conversational discussion. We decided on 13 because it sounded the best for us. I think it's also a trial and error kind of process, because after some time of using story points, you can see we never use the number 13. Maybe we can just go to 8. Maybe 8 is the number for us and our team. I know that I think in our design team, the highest number is 5. So it's very, very different for each team. And how do you decide the size for the numbers? Well, you rate on, I guess, if 13 is the highest and the biggest task you can have in your sprint. So you kind of try and go from there. So let's say, again, trial and error. I think we give to our blog posts an 8 and kind of see if it works or not. Sometimes we overestimate, so we give it next time we give it a lower score. Yeah, I think if I answer your question.
Thank you. Ladies first. Sorry, just 1 second.
You mentioned that you use Jira as a platform.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a good platform for Scrum, and would you recommend something else?
Yes, I think it's a very good platform for Scrum. I would say it's more for those who are more experienced, because it's quite techy. I think it can have a lot of interchangeable factors. It's a bit difficult at the beginning to understand, and I think it's a bit expensive if you want to buy it within your company. It depends on how many, if the company wants to buy Jira for you. There's free tools like I think Trello or Asana that you can use, and it can serve the same purpose. It's not as pretty, but it still works. So if you need to use something immediately, I would say Trello and Asana works fine. And it's in the slides as well if you want.
Thank you. So I hand right in the back. Yes?
When you decided to start working in Agile way, have you thought about other frameworks, for example, Kanban?
Yes, we did. I read up Kanban as well. It was easier for us to move with Scrum just because we had Scrum Masters and devs that work in this way. So, and it's stuck with us. I know that SEO team actually moved to Kanban, and then they're using Scrumban. It's like a mix of Scrum and Kanban, because officially Kanban doesn't have a backlog, and Scrum does, so that's why it's like a mix. The difference is that Kanban doesn't have sprints. So the SEO team decided it's easier, better for them because they have more repetitive tasks, and they just didn't see the point of evaluating the tasks. And that's, that's what works for them. For us, we have a lot of different tasks that can be graded differently, more interchangeable, like complex situations. That's why we kind of stuck with Scrum, and we like it.
Thank you. I have any more questions? Yes.
When you're creating the Jira task, probably you're talking about the new things which you're implementing, and usually it might appear as a repetitive task, which you need to repeat daily, weekly, monthly, maybe. So what you're doing to these tasks, are you still holding them in Jira, or you are having some other system?
I would say we don't have a lot of repetitive tasks in content, and especially in writing. This is where, in the example of SEO, they did have repetitive tasks, and that's why they switched to Kanban board. And maybe this is a good alternative to research more. Maybe if you have a lot of repetitive tasks, maybe a Scrumban version is a bit better for you.
Thanks.